U.S. airstrikes in northern Nigeria have rattled the economy, putting pressure on the Naira and pushing up Nigeria's Eurobond yields as investors rethink the country's risk profile. Oil production remains steady and Brent prices rose above $63 a barrel. Still, Nigeria is struggling to sell its crude amid weak demand and stiff competition. Finance Minister Wale Edun says the strikes will bring long-term stability, citing recent GDP growth as proof of resilience. But supply chain disruptions in the north have increased fuel imports, putting strains on foreign reserves and risking a rebound in inflation. Joining me in the studio is Zari Yusuf, a former national coordinator of Middle Belt Patriots. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure being here.
Virtually, we're being joined by Professor Simeon Na, an economist and public affairs analyst. Thank you for joining us, Prof.
Good evening and compliments of the season.
Same to you. I can see the lights blinking behind you, but I don't think the economy is going to be making you smile soon.
I don't mind.
Okay.
I'm not operating with the economy of Nigeria.
Okay, Prof. We'll be coming back to you in a bit. Just hold on there. Let me start with the security analyst here. Insecurity affects daily lives. We know that. Right. I mean, we all agree that it does. Movement and life generally is disrupted by insecurity, right?
That's right.
And for one who's been in the Middle Belt and coordinating all of these things, how would you characterize the U.S. airstrike, the U.S.-backed airstrike, put it that way, the U.S.-backed airstrike in Sokoto? Would you call it strategic? Would you call it tactical or symbolic?
It's strategic. Well, I'd call it all three. First of all, I'd say it's a welcome development. Sokoto, basically, a lot of people have asked the question. Let me even start off by trying to answer. A lot of people would say, if it was all about a Christian genocide, why Sokoto? Why not Benue? Why not Southern Kaduna? Why not Plateau and all of that? And I think the answer to that question is, why not Sokoto? Okay? There is a notorious group, Laukurawa, primarily, that a lot of people think maybe Boko Haram seems to be the most dangerous terrorist organization to a lot of people. But when you look at the human casualties, the number of people killed, they may not necessarily be. The strike in Sokoto is strategic. In a psychological sense, it tells now think of it as, say the Middle Belt is the front line, the depot that supplies whatever wastes the lives of people in the Middle Belt comes from there. Laukurawa did not, and let me just put it this way, I think the official proscription of that group as a terrorist organization came about maybe a week or so after a certain bill that sought to expand the jurisdiction of Sharia suffered defeat at the National Assembly. Prior to that, they were still in the country, but they were under the, say, maybe they were invited by people, help protect us against cattle rustlers and all of that. So, but what I'm trying to say to you is, for a long time, there have been recruitments by this group, okay? Laukurawa in Sokoto. I think they are stronger in Sokoto than you would find them in Zamfara and all of that. And so I think it is strategic in the sense that it sends a message that we're not necessarily facing you now in the trenches, we're coming home to you wherever you are. So it's, think of that place as a depot, and that is how strategic that strike is.
Because some would have said that the strike should have gone towards the Zamfara Katsina axis, where it looks like they've had more frequent banditry attacks.
Well, like I said, the depot should be all calm and quiet. So there may not necessarily be the activity that looks like there is a lot of terrorism around here. It's a breeding ground. And this group is not just some local individuals who just happen to have access to arms. No, they are not. As far back, I think, as 2012, 2013, they have engaged the Malian army. And they were not only defeated, but the Malians made it difficult for them to stay there. And when you go through certain reports, certain surveys and all of that, you'd realize that Nigeria, of all of their movements across the Sahel, seem to be a place they feel more at home.
So this Lakurawa is a movement from Mali all the way down. Is that what you're?
That's right. They've been a notorious terrorist group.
I'll come back to you. Let's get to Prof. Prof, the matter of Prof. Sonna, if you can hear me there, this matter of insecurity and its effect on the economy. He's mentioned a couple of things that insecurity seems to the effects it brings on the economy. For their bandits, it's about acquiring equipment. So they spend money. So some economies are thriving and some other economies are suffering. But in this case, I just had that airstrike, and some are concerned about the economics of that airstrike on the Nigerian space. What do you have to say?
Well, let me start from the security angle, although I'm not a security expert. He said part of the things I had in mind. The strike in Sokoto was strategic because in strategy, there's an element of surprise. A lot of people expected, like you said, that they hit Zamfara or other places. But you know that America has threatened for some time now to strike. And you don't expect them to continue to wait for them in Zamfara or in Sambisa or what have you. They would have moved to a quiet state, a quiet place where they think the security operatives might not know. Recall that the day of the strike, Niger patrol team said that they saw Lakurawa people running away from the side of the district. And the intel that were shared made us know that most of the equipment were stockpiled in that area that was attacked by America. Having said that, now the impact it will have in our economy is that foreign investors are going to hang on, stay by the side to watch the events as they unfold. Because when you have, sorry?
Yes, go ahead, Prof.
Yeah, when you have insurgency in a country, some other countries may have informed their citizens to be careful of, working in Nigeria, more so the northern part of Nigeria. And so people that have businesses in such areas may be wary of coming to Nigeria this time around, and movement of goods and services to that area will equally have some problems for now. So it's going to affect the economy. And like you said, the inflation is coming up a little bit because the food inflation that was going down will now have a spike because most of the food items that are coming from the north, the people may have issues now going to farms and bringing those things down south. So it's going to have an impact. But let's watch events as they unfold. If they are able to ensure that these insurgency are kept at bay, then the inflation rate might be for a little period, and the economy will bounce back.
Prof,
because
you said
now people will have confidence in the economy that they can sleep with their two eyes closed.
Prof, you said something, if they're able to keep this insurgency at bay, it's been going on for decades. If they, when you say they here, who are you talking about? The Nigerian state or the foreign the foreign support team, like the US? You
can see my hand. Both. The foreign support, because they are the people now that are doing, although we had intel too, that the Air Force has been doing some exercise in the last 1 month or so that has led to some of them now to start begging. I read a tweet of former President IBB that said, no, they should not consider, these begging from bandits. Rather, they should smoke them out. So I think the heat has been on them, and with the foreign partners coming in now and intensifying that heat, I think it's a matter of time before these guys will run away. See, let me tell you for free, and you can check that. The headsmen or the Boko Haram, or whatever they call themselves, Lakura, they have not won in any fight. It's only this ragtag fight, hit and run. They tried it in, what is it called again? The Congo DR. They couldn't succeed. They tried in a small republic after a Republic of Benin, and they were driven out. So at the end of the day, one-on-one war, they don't survive. It's only this their guerrilla war that they're surviving. So if they are hit now, they are going to move their base from Nigeria to another place.
Okay, let me come back to Mr. Yusuf. Mr. Yusuf, he's mentioned that they tried it after Benin, that's Togo, and they did not succeed. But here in Nigeria, we've seen this happen, and we've heard rumors and reports of them using sophisticated equipment, seeing helicopters dropping things to them. That means they have sponsors.
That's right.
So if we have this kind of attacks, what happens to identifying those sponsors and dealing with them so that another group doesn't just spring up from out of this? And what is the guarantee of no effect on Nigeria's sovereignty and borders, territorial integrity?
Now you see the difference between their presence in Nigeria with how it was, say, in Central African Republic, where sort of they were engaged to fight the anti-Balaka militia, where in Mali they engaged the military then sort of possibly to run over the country and all of that, is that the governments of those countries didn't have elements that were sympathetic to those individuals. They are primarily composed of the Fulani ethnic nationality. When you go back 10, 15 years, you would realize that it is said that because of cattle rustling, some people invited them to help them fight against cattle rustlers. But prior to that time, they had a track record of being terrorists. I mean, their international CV in terrorism was a rich one. Local people cannot access groups like that. It will take the hands of politicians in high places because it involves a lot of money. You were talking about arms. They use armed drones. Okay, so they are sophisticated. But of course, some people try to lighten it up to make it look as if it's just AK-47s, RPGs and all of. No, they are sophisticated. They have engaged as far back as 2012. They have faced a conventional army. They just failed. But in Nigeria, like I said, some people will tell you that it seems more of a comfortable abode for them. They can't make trouble in Sokoto, but they are heavily sponsored. And that is the reason why you would realize that although they have been terrorists for a long time across the Sahel, fighting in Mali, fought in Central African Republic, but all of the while they stayed in Sokoto, all of the while they employed people, they didn't look like terrorists. And like I said, it may just be a mere coincidence, but just a week after a bill was beaten out for, the widening of the scope of Sharia, they became different. Their modus operandi changed. And I'm thinking, in my opinion, they are more dangerous than Boko Haram. The reason is simple. The fact that in the Middle Belt, there happened to be a Christmas, except, of course, the terrorist attack on, the Egon cultural carnival that happened yesterday, where 3 trucks ran into people and claimed that they all lost brakes. The Middle Belt has been quiet. And I would attribute it because looking at the warnings that came, a lot of it would have happened either the night of Christmas, either the day after, because a couple of times it had happened on the eve. So it looks as if on the eve, a lot of people would be at alert. But then it went quiet. And I don't want to disconnect it with the fact that there was that fireworks in Sokoto that Christmas night. What that means is that is the base from which, in my understanding, all of the Islamists operational in the Middle Belt are being released from. But it's unlikely that you would see any activity of fighting or killing people. It's just, like I said, it's supposed to be calm and quiet. And I think the attack is strategic. We would know who the sponsors are when there are more attacks and there are eliminations. And I would say, and I would risk being accused of generalizing things, but whoever it is you find proposing the idea of negotiating with them, appeasing them, listening to them or whatsoever is frankly not far away from sponsorship of these terrorists. It doesn't matter whether he's in the military or whether he's a politician.
So let me get back to you, Prof. Sonna. You see, you mentioned something earlier, and somebody else had mentioned that in that area where the airstrikes took place, there's little or no government present in terms of infrastructure, hospitals, roads, and pipe-borne water, electricity. And this might just be, I mean, going from what Yusuf has said, this might just be grounds for this group to find sympathizers. Should government be rethinking its strategy? I mean, government at all levels, unless they are sympathizers with this terrorist.
Well, I don't want to approach it from that angle, because even the people that are in that area cannot sympathize with them, because it's not easy for them. But let me say this succinctly. Like rightly mentioned, you will discover that there have been no attack recently in Sokoto. Recall that during the last regime, I don't know why we are avoiding that, the former president opened our borders and asked all of them to troop into the country without visas. And this was when some of them got into the country. Their operational base is Sokoto. That is a fact that cannot be denied. And, the airstrike, it was discovered that most of their equipment were destroyed in that area. Yes, you know that there are a lot of, terrorist organizations that are operating in Nigeria now. You have the Lakarawa, you have the Boko Haram, you have the ISIS, you have even the Metiala, because they carry AK-47 around. So all of them should be grouped. The president said all of them should be grouped as terrorist organizations. So at the end of the day, now they are given the impression that that area is quiet, and because of that, they made it the operational base. Then from there, they moved to attack other cities and other states of the Federation. So because you know that America, they have their intel is superlative. So they cannot just start attacking areas indiscriminately. Recall that after the attack, there were grapevines that civilians were killed. And these are people that don't want this attack to continue, because we have had now that no individual, no citizen that is not part of this terrorist organization that was hurt. So the people that had injuries and that were decimated at the end of the day were this Lakara group.
All right.
And recall that they have been operating in Kwara, and they just hit and run back to their base.
All right, Prof. I really want to thank you. Yusuf, just before we let you go, if there was an advice you'll give to the Nigerians, because I do know the Nigerian military is on top of their game. Now, I do know that we have superlative intelligence also, and I know that we have the equipment to do this. But in terms of sympathizers within the rank and file, what would be your advice in the next 30 seconds?
First of all, I think, let me begin by the former governor of Kaduna State, Nasiru El-Rufai. Basically, when I see what the Lakurawas have achieved in Sokoto State in terms of their recruitment and in terms of the manpower they have put together and how they've terrorized other parts, I'm reminded of how he gloated on national TV of tracing fighters to Mali, tracing Fulanis to Mali. He didn't give an idea on what cover he traced them. Now I'm one of those who believe they are elements of these groups, because not long after he claimed he paid them, the pattern of massacres in Kaduna State changed. But it looks as if there are certain people that seem to be above the law. As long as elements like that move around freely, there is a tendency of compromising the attempts of the Nigerian army at every phase, or the government, when it comes to eliminating these criminals. Now, the military has a responsibility of weeding out, parts of them, especially in terms of their strategic operations. When there is a leak, trace it out. An example is where children were kidnapped and somebody said there was an order to withdraw people. So I think, to a large extent, we should, much as we eliminate the ones in the bush, there must be a similar treatment given to those in government. The likes of Sheikh Gumi, if the country was functional, the likes of Sheikh Gumi, Nasir El-Rufai, they should be behind bars or taken out or possibly live on exile. But unfortunately, you find a policeman standing behind a man who speaks on behalf of terrorists simply because he has some religious, pedigree or whatsoever he wishes to call it.
We've had here in the studio Ziri Yusuf, former National Coordinator, Middle Belt Patriot and a security expert. And also joining us virtually was Professor Simeon, economist and public affairs analyst. Thank you, gentlemen, for sharing your thoughts with us.
Thank you so much.
And we wish you well. Thank you, Prof.